Good morning, my colleagues and students. Before I deliver my welcome remarks, I request the chief guest of this morning function to come and occupy the seat here, and my other colleagues, Dr. Nandakishore and Dr. Monish, to occupy their seats. On behalf of the Department of Geopolitics and International Relations, I have great pleasure in welcoming the chief guest of this morning function, Air Vice Marshal Ramesh Karnik. All of you may be familiar about his contribution because we have discussed about this earlier. Sir, we are really delighted to have you here. And I was not aware that you were staying so nearby. You could have really interacted much earlier. And we would like you to visit again. Yes, it's a very, not very far. Yeah, right, yeah. So I think really we are delighted to have you here at our department. We are aware about your contributions in Indian Air Force and obviously the larger issues which impacts India's national security. India has woken up. As you can see that the 70th anniversary of India's independence is being celebrated across the education institutions across the country. So I think you can really see that this again is something revisiting India's freedom struggle, that how best we can understand. It's very important for us to understand that how India became independent because a lot of issues, a lot of challenges, a lot of role of the freedom fighters, leaders, really all these really were very, very significant in getting India liberated from the British colonialism. And today we are assembling here just to get back and understand about the various issues which led India to become independent country. And it's very, very important for not only us, but every citizen of India should know about this. I think this is again awakening, India awakening, and everywhere I think it's being celebrated. And a formal circular had come from University Grant Commission to our university to celebrate this 70th anniversary and apprise about the contributions made by the freedom fighters, the role of national leaders, and many other things. So in a very modest way, we really have planned this, and we would like to really see that how best we can learn from this experience, because we are very fortunate to get a very good speaker, and it's really, sir, we are feeling very privileged, and it's very important for us that he was able to make it, and he has come here, and we are going to listen his views on India's freedom struggle. I'll just say a few words. Before I say, I would like Mr. Ramu, our PhD scholar, to welcome him by offering a bouquet. Welcome our chief guest. India's freedom struggle has to be understood in varying phases. As you can see, a lot of debates have happened on India's freedom struggle, and someone, a very well-known historian, they told that, look, it was started much earlier in terms of at least seeing that how the people really are aware about their rights, their freedom, and how best they can really become liberated from the Britishers. And one battle which was fought way back in 1757, it was again very important battle of Plassey. It was showing a lot of dissatisfaction, especially among the citizens of India. And that was a signaling to the Britishers about what exactly one can really hope, especially in the foreseeable future. Then again, the Battle of Buxar happened, and more importantly, the revolt of 1857, which was dubbed by the Britishers as the Sepoys Mutiny, which it was not Sepoys Mutiny. It was again India's first war of independence, and that was signaling everywhere across the country. That time, obviously, British India, and that really helped to really mobilize the public opinion in the favor of having certain independence movement, and how best they could really get liberated. And the other aspects, again, one can see that how the Indian, again, was mainly to see that how best they can have a platform to opine against the British or against the British rule. And that again took a very different dimension when Mahatma Gandhi came back to India. And as you know that the whole decade of the early part of the 20th century again saw a very radical shift in the larger approaches of the national movement. And that again, as you can, may have read about the role of extremists, moderates, and how these again were having the varying degree of interpretation about their movements, and how they were on some time, or on some occasion, they were converging on many issues. On many occasions, they had a lot of divergences, and ultimately they were fighting for the same cause. So I think the various factors which really influenced the national movement obviously one fine day, as you know, the Britishers left. So it has a long history, and every contribution made by the freedom fighters or the national leaders, including, I don't know, the famous Bal, Pal and Lal, or Lal, Bal and Pal, that again, you see the various role which really became very much significant, especially in debating and discussing during the Congress sessions. And each of the Congress sessions really had certain very important resolutions which were passed. So I think very important to revisit many of these and obviously hear from the experts on these issues and try to learn from this, because as I say that as an Indian citizen, we have to learn about this. We can't really ignore this. This is the 70th anniversary of India's independence, and unless and until we understand that how India got liberated and where India is moving ahead in the current context, what India has done in the last 70 years, as you know that the concept of freedom and concept of liberty, these are again being debated. That what does freedom constitute? What does liberty constitute? So again, one concept which I think all of us have to be aware about, that freedom one can enjoy with accountability. You can't just enjoy the freedom and keeping the accountability away from your larger parameters. So I think we need to understand all these debates. And once again, I am very delighted to welcome on behalf of the Department of Geopolitics and International Relations, Air Marshal Ramesh Karnik, and we really feel very privileged to have him here. I also, in fact, welcome Professor Chiraga, who has come after a long time. He used to head our management school, and we used to have long debates and discussions with him. So we are delighted, sir, that you were able to make it. My other invitees, my students from the United States Study Abroad program, they have come here, and they are sitting in the audience. And our own students from the Department of Geopolitics, they are sitting here, the senior scholars. So I welcome one and all. I request my colleague, Dr. Nandakishore, to formally introduce our chief guest of this morning function. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Morning to everyone. It's always a privilege to introduce the Karniks because their service to the nation has been really great. Some of you remember last year we had Azadi at 70. We had his younger brother, Captain Ganesh Karnik, coming here. This year we have the elder brother coming here. So the Karniks have been very important to the Department of Geopolitics too. Let me take the privilege of introducing Air Vice Marshal K R Karnik. He was born a year before the independence of this country, so he's a veteran. He was born on 5/5/1946 in Kervashe in Karkala Taluk. He had his formal education. He had BCom from Mysore University, Master of Management Studies from Osmania University. He also had another course in the form of Long Defense Management course at the College of Defense in Secunderabad. He started off as a teacher in a government school in 1967, moved further to the Controller and Auditor General's office prior to moving in 1968 to the Air Force. And he retired in 2004 as Air Vice Marshal. He worked at several parts of India, almost on several important locations. He was in Assam in the 1971 war, and after the war he visited Dhaka. During the Kargil War I, he was at the Air Force headquarters, holding position of the Director, Air Force Welfare Funds. He was also on deputation to the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. He was a controller of the accounts in the Ministry of Human Resource Development. At the time of retirement, he was in charge of the Indian Air Force, a budget of almost 15,000 crores. He was also advisor to the Chief of Air Staff on financial matters. Post-retirement, Air Vice Marshal joined NITE Group of institutions, served 7 years in the capacity of faculty, registrar and director, and finally retired in the year 2012. Presently, he is a professor emeritus at the Alvas Institution, and he continues to teach the MBA students. More than all those things, he has been a motivational speaker who most of the time interacts with the younger generation and inspires them to join the forces. I'm sure today, too, he has a plan to do that, and he will to inspire many of you to join the forces, a coveted position. So I take privilege and I take pride in introducing Air Vice Marshal Ramesh Karnik ji, and I request my head of the department to honor Air Vice Marshal on behalf of the department. I request all of you to stand and give him an ovation. I've been given this pleasant task to talk about revisiting India's freedom struggle. I've done that partially in the class of Indian government and politics. I'll see what does that something that we haven't covered or something that's new as an information. Now, very interesting is after the first session of the Congress that was held at the Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College on the 28th December 1885 in Mumbai, because initially it was supposed to be at Pune, and then there was a cholera breakout, due to which it was shifted to Mumbai. The Congress started off as a group, started off with just 72 delegates in the first Congress session. By the year 1886, it already had 436 delegates. That itself shows that how important it was as a forum. Now, having had distinguished personalities such as W.C. Banerjee and others being part of it, there were very, very important sessions that were there. Now, each of these places, when it started off with the concept of Swadeshi, it started with several other components of striving for the nation's freedom, certain interventions came in the form of divide and rule that was from the British. All of you are aware, that's with the partition of Bengal. But immediately what followed it was, somebody took clue, and then 1906, you see the formation of Muslim League, with Aga Khan, then Nawab Salimullah and Nawab Mushul Muluk, all these people starting this particular organization or a party called Muslim League. All of you are aware, in 1907, there was a Surat Congress in which there was a split within the Congress because some of the people who were already part of the Indian National Congress also were part of the India's freedom struggle, felt somewhere that Congress wasn't in a position to lead them because their ways of dealing with the British was largely petitioning, then coming out with resolutions, requesting. These were the modes in which they were doing. So they had a group of people, as sir already mentioned, Lal Bal Pal. Apart from, there were also people like Aurobindo and others who felt that there was a necessity to move beyond and then show something else to the people. But unfortunately, they were also termed as extremists because that's a difficult scenario because these are binaries. You say somebody as moderates and then say somebody as extremists. It's very difficult because these were the people who took the mid path. They were not into extreme violence, unlike people like Bhagat Singh, who also thought violence is one of the means to achieve independence. So we call them also as extremists. We also call somebody like Tilak also as, or Lal Bal Pal also as extremists. Now, coming back to the importance of celebrating this particular event is also to commemorate the Quit India movement. That was on the 8th of August, 1942. So that's one of the reasons why in this month we are celebrating the success that it gave us. Now, as a precursor, it was Cripps' mission in 1942, where Sir Stafford Cripps came into India in the month of March, and then he left in the month of June 1942, because he came with an idea to push forward certain things that people in India would listen to, because there was already World War II that was going on. He had to somewhere manage the Indian population, and he was also trying to convince the leadership and tell them that you will be given a dominion status only after the Second World War. But India also thought this is a high time when the British were in real trouble. This is the best time to push forward. And Gandhi and others, they took clue from this particular component, and then there was a Congress working committee that was held at Wardha, and then they took this particular decision in which they decided there has to be substance of power that has to be transferred immediately. And 8th of August at an AICC meeting at Bombay, it was held in 1942, they declared what we call as the Quit India movement. Now, prior to this one, when the whole resolution had to be passed, because no program would be taken up within the Congress as a party like a flash. It had to be through a particular resolution, through a particular meeting. So that particular meeting was the Govaliar, that was held near the Govaliar tank in Mumbai. The resolution was passed on three important terms. One was the failure of the Cripps mission itself, then the popular discontent because of the rising prices in Second World War, because the British were unable to manage. Lot of raw materials were going from here, and many of the things were returning to us, but at a higher cost, because the British were thinking that we also should fund the war, because they were fighting a war. At a point of time, it sounded the victory would not be theirs. The way Hitler was growing, they did not imagine that they would be able to gain whatever they aspired for. Probably Churchill's the work on World War, which runs into several parts. If you read, you will get a sense of it, what was the type of scenario that was there. Then the news of reverses, that was essentially something that the British were petrified. was of the news Japanese actually capturing several parts of the Southeast Asian region. They started off with Manchuria. They went up till the further Southeast Asian part to the Solomon Islands. And they had already captured Burma by then, the then Burma, today's Myanmar. So the fear was also that the British were thinking probably Japanese would capture. And this was a high time that the Indians also thought by using this as a component, they'll push forward for something so that the British on their own would leave and make it to look like more a dignified exit from here. So that was the idea. So the Congress came up with this particular resolution where it mentioned committal for free India. We will perform whatever, or we will form whatever that is called as the provisional government now itself, not after 1946. The idea was do or die. That was the scenario that they arrived at. So on the 9th August 1942, Viceroy Lithinglow said or gave orders that arrest all the important leaders of the Congress. And this came as some sort of a shock. They were expecting that they would be little slower on that one. Their concentration is on the World War II, and they would go slow on the Indians. But unfortunately, the Viceroy wasn't in that mood. So what he exactly asked was for capturing all the important leaders. And when this started happening, the whole movement did not get stopped. What essentially happened was people started boycotting schools, people started boycotting industries, they also came to the streets, but unlike the Chauri Chora, even this time there was violence. They started breaking several places, they even started derailing trains and such other things. Now, once the senior or the most important leaders who were the face of the national movement were arrested, the next idea or next issue was that who will exactly take it forward. It is at that particular point of time, we had a new set of leaders who worked underground, namely Ram Manohar Lohia, Jaiprakash Narayan, Aruna Asaf Ali, Usha Sharma, Biju Patnaik, then Chotubai Puranik, Achyut Patwardhan, Sucheta Kriplani, R.P. Goenka. I think all those people made a massive effort to take the next generation leadership. Probably this was the experience that they got, due to which probably in the later stages Lohia and JP could take it forward as great leaders. Something very interesting also, very rarely comes in the mainstream media or in the history textbooks, is also there was an underground radio. It was called as underground radio, also as a Congress radio. There was a lady by name Usha Mehta. She was leading this particular type of freedom where when these people were arrested, the British were unable to understand how was she actually getting the frequency. How was she able to communicate? She was smart enough to do that one. That's one of the greatest achievements that we see. Interesting is also, when the whole idea of fighting the national movement was happening, and then Gandhi was asking for the Purna Swaraj, Gandhi was asking for provisional government, Gandhi was asking for quit India, there were parallel governments that were running in India. India, I mean to say, present days Bangladesh as well as Pakistan. If you look interestingly, one of them is the Chittagong Hills, which started off in the 1930s itself, where Surya Sen, Kalpana Datta, then Pratirata Vidyut, all those people who took up to become part of the national movement. They declared that particular region saying that we have a parallel government running. We are not going to succumb to anybody's pressure. At the other side, we had in Balia, that is the eastern Uttar Pradesh, where somebody by name Chitu Pandey was also running a parallel government. And more importantly, the longest parallel government that was run was in the state of Maharashtra, in Satara, that was also called as the Prati Sarkar, where there was one personality by name Nana Patil and Y.B. Chavan. These two, probably they held more than one full year, they were running something called as the Prati Sarkar. That's the parallel government. Very interesting way the whole Quit India movement turned out to be. Now, one of the important things is also that there was participation from all the groups, and this was a time between 42 to 44, least number of communal violence happened. For the first time, it had gone down, and there were no such instances to divide. Somehow people had come together. Then there was Latichar, then there were arrests and all those things. This was one of the biggest sacrifices. Probably after Jallianwala Bagh, 10,000 people got killed in the Quit India movement itself. That is the record that they have. Then the press was gagged, but by February 1943, people went on fast. Gandhi went on fast against the violence itself because he was in the jail, but yet he went ahead. And there were also 3 important members in the Viceroy's Council who resigned in resentment against the violence that was unleashed on the people itself. Now, what are the takeaways if you look in from the Quit India movement itself? One of the things is the loyalty. There was a huge section of Indian population which had loyalty towards towards the British government. They withdrew that particular loyalty. So there was a suffering of the loyalty component from the Indian side. That itself was a major setback for the British. And British also realized that they cannot rule India anymore like the way they did before. Then, surprisingly, there was also an element of spontaneity. If they were able to control a particular group here, there would be another group that would come some other places. And the last but not the least, the first line of the leadership was in the jail, yet there was other group that took, probably that's the takeaway, biggest takeaway from the Quit India movement, probably also served as the biggest or the greatest blow to the British India, to realize that even before the war, probably they may have to fall into action. That's one of the time they started negotiating with the Indians, saying that we'll give it in 48, we'll give prior to that one. They started actually the major discussions. Probably these are largely the things that were associated with Quit India movement. The sense of freedom that Indians wanted, probably Gandhi also felt. Prior to that one in Hind Swaraj, he had written, even if the British give, I don't think we are ready to take it. So the same man now believed in 42 that this is the high time, or the time was ripe, that we need to take back and ask the British to leave the country. Again, he was telling, we will not use violence, but we will tell in a way that the British should realize, because Gandhi was so ethical, he would think that the British should realize that what they were doing was wrong for the Indians. So that's how the whole of the Quit India movement took shape, and then finally led to what we saw, the 1946, the provisional government. Subsequently, we had the Lord Mountbatten plan, the 3rd of June plan for the India's freedom struggle, or the end of the British rule in India, and finally the independence. Probably I'll leave the rest of the part to the Air Vice Marshal. Thanks for your patient listening.
Namaskar. A very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Arvind Kumar, Professor Nand Kishore, and my colleague and friend, good friend, Professor Chadaga, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I would like to thank Professor Nand Kishore for giving me an opportunity to come to this department. The other day, on the Ganesh Puja day in the evening, when we had sumptuous lunch and all, I was relaxing. I had a call from him, and it's a very short, brief discussion. He said, we want to invite you and honor you and all that. I said, all right, okay, I'll definitely come. But he never told me that I'll have to speak on this kind of a topic and subject. Next day morning, when I opened my email and I saw, he had given me a very, very tough homework. Because I'm not a professor of history, and I'm a military man. And my reading about Indian freedom struggle, not very deep, or whatever I had read quite some time ago. So I had to brush up. I had to pull out all my books here and there. And then I also not knowing what should be the scope of my talk. Because, revisiting history itself is a topic, right? So I thought, let me start with this particular point, revisiting history, or revisiting freedom struggle. That's a history today for all of us. So, yeah. So I thought I would cover all the points on this, introduction, why revisit history. Then, of course, he touched upon Sepoy Mutiny, First War of Independence. He also touched upon independence movement under Mahatma's leadership, independence partition, then maybe, if time permits, integration of Indian states, conclusion. And I'll be pleased to take on any questions and suggestions, right? Now, history, I'm going to show you two quotations. History is always subject to interpretations. Historic events are facts of history, no doubt about that. But circumstances leading to those historic events are subject to interpretations of, because we are taking a look at it after the event has taken place. Same is the case here, independence, and say 90 years post Sepoy Mutiny, 100 years before that, Company Sarkar. So it's a huge history as far as we are concerned. And volumes and volumes and volumes have been written about it. So therefore, so we need to understand why history. Just take a look at this. Our knowledge of any past event is always incomplete. Okay. That's why we are now looking at India's independence struggle. Probably inaccurate, be clouded by ambivalent evidence and biased historians, right? Okay. And perhaps distorted by our own patriotic or religious partisanship. Most history is guessing and the rest is prejudice, right? Whether Gandhi was, who was responsible for partition? Whether Jinnah was responsible, Gandhi responsible, Nehru failed, what were the circumstances that led to independence? All these things are, even though based on a lot of documentary evidence, still we interpret, a lot of discussions take place, and that's what we are going to understand, okay? And who said this? The famous American historian Will Durant. And look at this very sarcastic, history is all the lie commonly agreed upon. History is the lie commonly agreed upon, and who said this? I'm sure you must have, students of geopolitics, you must have heard Voltaire's name. So I have taken this quotation from Professor Michel Denino's talk at IIT Gandhinagar very recently. I don't know if you have heard his name, and he's a very good speaker. And my request, my suggestion to you is go to YouTube, and plenty of, if you want to know more and more about India from the perspective of a French professor, he is the right person, I would say that. Professor Arvind Kumar already mentioned about 1857 Sepoy Mutiny. Why I'm referring to that is, Sepoy Mutiny is also called War of Independence. Who called it War of Independence? That is Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. And that's the reason why I am bringing this, referring to this particular aspect of our independence struggle. And why Savarkar got enraged or, he was doing his studies in England. He was a very young man like you, around 20 plus, 24, 25. And by that time, he had already made his mark, and the British Empire had taken note of Savarkar's revolutionary leadership activities in India before he left for UK. And in England, they celebrated Sepoy Mutiny. The 50th year of Sepoy Mutiny was celebrated in England. He just couldn't stand that. Okay. So he called it War of Independence, and he wrote a book on that under the same title. And the book was banned, and as you all know. But then, there were a group of Indians, under the India House. They all joined together and somehow managed to, that book written in Marathi, translated into some other language, very clandestinely, get it printed. And they were not allowed to print in England. They smuggled it out and then printed somewhere in Europe. And then it made its way into India. And that was the inspiring book for most of the revolution which the previous speaker has already spoken about. It became a sort of a manifesto for the Indian revolutionaries. Okay, so that's the reason why I have referred to, and in my opinion, Savarkar hasn't been given the right place in the Indian history of freedom struggle because he has been branded as a revolutionary, and then subsequently Hindu Mahasabha, he was the leader of the Hindu Mahasabha, and then Gandhi assassination was also an issue. But as a young man of 25 years age, he was sent to Kalapani and awarded 50 years of imprisonment, 50 plus 50, for on sedition charges. And he underwent the most horrendous punishment, and you must visit Port Blair jails and you'll realize that. So the other reason for me to talk about the Sepoy Mutiny is to bring home the changes that it brought about. Incidentally, I want to ask you, failure of Sepoy Mutiny, was it acceptable or it was a blessing in disguise? That's the question I want to ask you. Anyway, later you can say that. So after the Sepoy Mutiny, till then, the governance of this country was in the hands of East India Company. Can you imagine? He referred to Battle of Bastar and Battle of Plassey, 1757 and 1763. Siraj-ud-Daula was defeated by Robert Clive, and same way in Battle of Buxar, the last Mughal fellow, that Shah Alam and Nawab of Awadh and one more, they were also defeated. And that's how the company Sarkar after that, and gradually, just imagine such a huge country and one company, and what was he? Politically, the total political knave or inexperience of Rajas and Maharajas and Nawabs, they just couldn't come together and then fight for the nation. I'll show you some other, how the Britishers looked at. I will show you. Then you will realize what was the situation at that time. So the crown took over the control. Last Mughal exiled and imprisoned, Bahadur Shah Zafar. Then improved administration under a sophisticated bureaucracy, Indian Civil Service, Police, Royal Indian Air Force, Indian Army, Indian Navy, Forest Department, Railways, Irrigation, etc. Everything Britishers went about very methodically to give an administration for the entire country, so sort of a political unity of this nation. Earlier, there was no political unity. It was all, the principalities, Marathas and Jats and Sikhs and whatnot. Brought more than 500 princely states under the crown, and along with provinces directly ruled by the crown, laid foundation for political unity of India. The Raj came into existence, and Queen Victoria became the Empress of India. So the question, therefore, is whether failure of Sepoy Mutiny, First War of Independence, was a blessing in disguise. I hold the view that, yes, it was blessing in disguise. Some of you may differ. Yes, patriotic fervor, it will tell you that no, it should have succeeded. But imagine if it had succeeded, perhaps you would have had 500 small little countries. We don't know what could have happened. And we are in sync with the modern world. That's how Britishers brought in, the new administrative machinery systems, and everything came from the West to us. Okay. At this stage, let us try to understand the views of the British about India and its people and political situation at that time. When they took over India, how did they look at us Indians, we Indians? Okay. Because now they had to govern, such a huge country and very diverse people, very, very diverse people, and they did not know the language, right? But still they had the skill and the will, both, to govern and then master and subdue the, all kinds of political aspirations of the kings and nawabs. When the governance got transferred from East India Company to the Crown, Sir John Strachey, member governing council, just look at this quotation from him. Okay. The difference between the countries of Europe were much smaller than those between the countries of India. Scotland is more like Spain than Bengal is like Punjab. Okay. Now here, countries. That means they looked at us, Marathas, Jats, Punjab, Bengal. For them, they were all small little countries because they were coming from the European background. In Europe, they had, Spain and Portugal and France and Britain and whatnot. So they were all independent countries by then. So they looked at us, and they didn't look at us as one India as such. In India, the diversities of race, language, and religion were far greater. unlike in Europe, these countries were not nations. Okay, even today, we have this question in front of us. Okay, nation, nationality, nation state. The concept of nation and nation state is European. Okay, what is our concept? Okay, Desh, we used to call Magadha Desh, Sindhu Desh, or whatever Desh from time immemorial. But we also had the concept of Rashtra, okay, right? So if you go deep into all these issues, Professor Denino says, you listen to his interview on this topic, he says, India is a civilization more than a nation. It's a civilization, and it is to be understood as a civilization. And what are those aspects which are important from that point of view when we are talking about diversity and unity? The concept is, the word is unity in diversity. So do we lay stress on diversity, or do we try to understand those factors which are responsible for unity? These days, in all political discourse, or even from the earlier days, the emphasis is on diversities. Even today, people talk of diversities more than the factors which are unifying. So therefore, today there is, if you ask me, there is a definite need to focus our attention on those aspects of India and our civilization, our culture, which are unifying factors, which I have seen in the armed forces. That's a very important aspect I want to, Okay, so that's what the point I wanted to make here. In India, the diversities of race, language, and religion were far greater. And they're also looking at us as a race. Do you think we have a race? Do you think we have a concept of race in India? We don't have the concept of race. Whereas they came with that concept, because they got the white race and black race, or whatever it is. We have the concept of jati, okay, caste. Later it came to be called as caste. Otherwise, if you go from the varnashrama dharma system, it is varna and later into jati by birth and by profession, kula kasubu, or your vocation of your family. And we had that system in India, but we did not have the concept of race. Okay, they did not have a distinct political or social identity. Okay, there is not and never was in India possessing, according to European ideas, any sort of unity, physical, political, or religious. So they felt, we can control them because they're definitely not united. They can't unite. There is no way they can unite. So they're successful in their thinking and in their effort, and that's how they could establish governance, and over a period of 100 years before Sipai Mutiny, and the next 90 years they went about it. But were they right? Were they right in thinking like that? That's what we are going to see. Okay. Now, how did they fortify the Raj? Right? The first thing is, perhaps I would say, because governance of such a vast country by bringing people from England was not possible. It would take 25 days or so many days to come via Cape of Good Hope and bring the people over to India. So then they thought of training the Indians. And the English Education Act was passed in 1835. Okay. Introduction of English and British system of education, pushing Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian, and native languages into the background. It was the contribution of Lord Bentinck and Macaulay. See, Macaulay is a much misunderstood person. A lot of, in WhatsApp and a lot of messages, Macaulay said this, Macaulay said that and all. But I think I have read all those things. I did not want to show it, maybe you have read. So I brought in only those little aspects of it, only this much. What he says, I see the public mind of India, that public mind which we found debased people in governance, public mind, rajas, maharajas. It is debased and contracted by the worst forms of political and religious tyranny. He saw our rulers, either they were religious or they were tyrannical. They did not have social consciousness, concern for the people, concern for the governance. Okay, expanding itself to just and noble views of the ends of government and of the social duties of man. So with the introduction of English language, bringing European culture into India, European systems and methods into India, Lord Macaulay felt that we can transform our subjects and bring them at par with European standards. This is what Macaulay's idea of bringing British system of education and introduction of English. The question in front of us today, has that purpose been achieved? And in the bargain, is English damaging Indian culture, Indian languages? Is it destroying? Okay. You know, the other day I was listening to a Kannada song, so a parody. Okay. It says, Kannada na English nungitta. You know that song. Idli dosa na pizza nungitta. You know. So this is the song. It's a very nice one. It's in WhatsApp. It's circulating. So there is a feeling in our country. It is not only our local language. It's all Indian languages are damaged or being pushed to the side because of English. But at the same time, English gave us, you know, the British administration gave us whatever democratic system we have and whatever science, and, you know, it opened up a window to our people. Okay. And most importantly, it gave an opportunity to Indians, the intellectuals, the people from the higher class, the sons of higher class, to go to England, right? And then get educated there, become barristers, because all those people whom he referred, most of them were educated in England, and they were barristers. And instead of becoming the loyal subjects of, you know, the Queen Victoria, they became the pioneers of freedom fight, freedom struggle. Okay, so the English language also became a blessing in disguise. Otherwise, perhaps, you know, things would have been different. But at the same time, one more point I want you to note, that the elite, the people in the higher levels of the society, everyone aspired for their sons and children to go. I won't say daughters. Those days, you know, education for daughters was not an issue at all. It was for the sons. So the sons were all sent to this British system of colleges in Calcutta and Bombay and all that. And they wanted them to become Indian civil servants. That is also a fact. Like today, you go to any village, even a auto rickshaw driver or even a laborer, he wants his children to study in English medium because English has become a means of good employment, good life, everything. So we are still in the same mindset of people, elite at that time, today all Indians. Okay. So that's how the Macaulay's contribution I thought I would share with you. Then Indian National Congress, 1885, he referred to it. Professor Arvind Kumar has referred to it. I will not go into the depth of it since it would be a repetition. But the purpose of Indian National Congress, okay, they're very brilliant and bright, very people who knew how to handle things. So by the time the spark of freedom had caught up, and therefore you have to give a channel to vent to those feelings. Those who had English education came back from England, they were all forming various, started with the Gokhale or Tilak or all those names we mentioned. So they were all looking for how to go about with the freedom struggle. So they thought of starting a club for them, and that is the Indian National Congress in 1885. And the purpose was would be affiliated with the government and act as a platform to voice Indian public opinion. Right? It's a link between the government and the general public. That's what the Indian National Congress was all about. Least they realized that the same Indian National Congress would lead the independence struggle in due course. So the next issue that we need to focus is the partition of Bengal in 1905 by Lord Curzon. By then, the Muslims have also had woken up. Till then, Muslims really had not, in a big way, participated in any of those independence struggle. You know that in Aligarh, the Aligarh Muslim University, what we call, it was started by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So he was laying emphasis on modern British education. Otherwise, till then, Muslims were never, they were all into Arabic, Persian, madrasa type of education. So then the Muslims also came into the independence mainstream, but then the Britishers realized that there is a golden opportunity for them to drive a wedge between Hindus and Muslims. Okay, Bengal was the Muslim majority state. So they divided Bengal into East Bengal and West Bengal, 1905. So that, a Muslim identity can be strengthened so that throughout it will become a tool in their hand to subvert the independence movement in the country. That's how they schemed it, they planned it. Okay, but it proved counterproductive. There was a huge uproar, right? And subsequently they had to annul it. And it was again, Bengal was united. But then the damage was already done, and All India Muslim League was born in 1906. A very powerful organization to give voice to the Muslim, to start with the elites, the rich, the jamindars, the nawabs and all that, but in due course, the entire Muslim population. Okay, so that's the where the freedom struggle took a slightly a different route. Then another most important aspect we need to refer to is Vande Mataram. Even today it is controversial. Okay, very recently in Maharashtra we had this problem where you sing Vande Mataram or you don't sing Vande Mataram. Okay, but at that time this song was very popular, and it was sung by none other than Rabindranath Tagore at the 1896 session of the Indian National Congress. And this, I don't know how many of you have read Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's Anandamath. It's a very interesting story, very emotional. And in fact, if you read that, you'll find his struggle that in Anandamath, they talk more about the domination of Muslim rulers in Bengal and less about white British rule in Bengal. But then this song is very, very electrifying song, and that was adopted by the Indian National Congress. It was sung in all sessions. Okay. Then what happened was, by then Jinnah was already in India. He was all part of the Indian National Congress. Then arrives Mahatma Gandhi in 1915, and Indian movement under his relation took a different turn. Nehru also joins subsequently. Now, the most important point is Khilafat movement in 1919 and 22. Okay. So Mahatma Gandhi, after he joined the Indian independence movement, he embarked upon various strategies. One of his strategies was non-violence, ahimsa and satyagraha. As a tool, how to tame the Britishers, how to bring them to accept, our demands. So Gandhi's approach was mass mobilization of the Indian people. And he also brought in certain elements of Indian culture, religion, etc., etc. The concept of Ramraj, bhajans, etc., etc. Till then, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was part of Indian National Congress and movement. Okay. But when he saw Gandhi taking a different route, because he was a constitutional expert and his approach was to fight the Britishers in the assemblies, at the political level, and he was not in favor of using religion or using mass struggles, things like that. But Mahatma Gandhi, in order to take the Muslims along, he gave importance to Khilafat movement. I hope you understand what is Khilafat movement. You know, the Ottoman Empire was dismantled by the Britishers, and the Indian Muslims rose up in arms or whatever it is. They demonstrated, and showing solidarity with them, Gandhi thought, would bring Hindus and Muslims together. But actually it didn't happen. So as a result of that, Jinnah left Congress. Muhammad Ali Jinnah left Congress. That is the major turning point in the history of Indian freedom struggle. Now, what kind of a person Muhammad Ali Jinnah was? It's a very difficult. We need to understand him here. It's very important. You know, two personalities, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Nehru, Gandhi, they were all pacifists. Okay, peace, shanti, ahimsa. Whereas Jinnah's approach at that time, nationalism, yes, no doubt, he was nationalistic. And his approach, constitutional, legal, etc., but not mob hysteria, you know. So he just went out. And then if you look at this answer he gave to one journalist, then it gives you an idea what pushed him, what made him, what prompted his exit from the Congress. He said, when a question was asked to him, well, young man, I will have nothing to do with the pseudo-religious approach to politics. I part company with Congress and Gandhi. I do not believe in working up mob hysteria. Okay, you know, it's taken from one book written by Durgadas. Right? That's what Jinnah went out. The gap between Jinnah and the Congress kept on widening and widening and widening. Okay. Then the same man who was professing, you know, against religion, bringing religion into this one, he had joined, you know, this is before, he had already joined Indian Muslim League. This is one thing which I have not been able to understand, you know. Even before Gandhi came to India, Muhammad Ali Jinnah became a member of simultaneously he was in Congress as well as he was in Muslim League. So how to accept or how to believe that he did not have an element of religious feeling in him or a communal feeling in him? It's a very difficult question. I don't see anybody having, you know, two memberships simultaneously, a member of Congress working for the independence struggle and also becoming a member of the Muslim League. You take the case of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, another great Muslim scholar. Strictly speaking, Azad was the real Muslim. Okay, he was born in Mecca. He had all his education in Islamic jurisprudence, Islamic theology, whatnot, and Arabic, Persian, everything he had studied. He didn't have a university degree. He was a true Muslim from that point of view. Whereas Jinnah was something different. He was a whiskey drinker, a smoker, and he ate pork and whatnot. He was almost a Britisher, you know, you can say, because he had his education in England. So Jinnah also became a member of the Muslim League even before Mahatma Gandhi came to India. This is a question which I have not been able to understand the duality of this man. But when he joined Muslim League, he made this statement that his loyalty to Muslim League and Muslim interest would in no way and at no time imply even the shadow of disloyalty to the larger national cause to which his life was dedicated. Lofty ideal. Very, very lofty ideal. Okay, that is that his loyalty to Muslim League and Muslim interest would in no way and at no time imply even the shadow of disloyalty to the large national cause to which his life was dedicated. At that time also he was professing national interest, and at the same time he will also work for the interest of the Muslims. Now, this man, okay, how he was described by the Congress people at that time? It is freedom from all sectarian prejudices, which will make him the best ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity. Gokhale said. Gokhale was his mentor. When Gandhiji landed in India in 1915, Jinnah was the main speaker on behalf of the Gujarat Society to welcome the hero of South Asia. Once he embraced the two-nation theory, the idea that India's Muslims were a separate nation from Hindus by virtue of their religion, culture, and historic experience, Jinnah virtually conjured Pakistan into statehood by the forces of his indomitable will. This transformation of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, okay, when we are revisiting Indian history, we need to understand this in all its dimensions, in all its depth. He transformed. The secularist Jinnah, he's been called as a secular Jinnah by Advani or even Jaswant Singh. He has written a book about Muhammad Ali Jinnah. But this man, you can see here, he transformed two-nation theory. In the previous quotation you have seen, national interest. He talked about national interest, Hindu-Muslim unity. But now, this man was talking about we are two different nations. And then he fought for it, right? And what is his achievement at the end of the day? Few individuals significantly alter the course of history. Fewer still modify the map of the world. Hardly anyone can be credited with creating a nation state. Muhammad Ali Jinnah did all three. This is his biographer, Stanley Wolford, says that. Okay, few individuals significantly alter the course of history. Alexander, Napoleon, Churchill. Okay, fewer still modify the map of the world. Collapse of Ottoman Empire, things like that. Hardly anyone can be credited with creating a nation state. In Europe, many. M.A. Jinnah did all the three. Look at this. Look at this, the potential of this man. He is a very interesting personality to study. And as students of geopolitical science, I call upon you to read as much as possible because it's very necessary to understand the people who are the leaders. What is there inside them? You trust them, you believe them, they lead and you are led. But are they taking to the right destination or are they taking to the precipice? And this is what happened. Okay. So that's about Jinnah. Let's move various other factors which contributed toward the independence. Because here I am looking at the question, can we attribute Indian independence solely to Mahatma Gandhi's struggle, Congress, or are there other factors which are contributory, which are important for India's independence? Why Britishers made up their mind for giving independence to India? In this context, sometimes, it's my personal view, when I look at Goa independence, right, non-violence did not succeed. Goa Satyagraha, it didn't succeed. Gandhian methods did not succeed. See, I was a student in the 60s, early 60s. Professor Chadaga also must have known about it. A lot of, people came and gave a lot of lectures. Let's go to Goa for Satyagraha, Independence Goa and all that. And my hometown is fully dominated by Gaud Saraswat people, Konkani Gaud Saraswat people. And all these GSBs have got their gods and their, temples, what do you call that? The Kula Devata is in Goa, even today, and including the Christians, because they were the first batch of converts who, during the Goa Inquisition, they also ran away. They couldn't bear the torture of the Goa Inquisition. So a lot of people went, and they all came back nicely beaten up, and they were narrating. We were all very young school boys at that time. So it didn't succeed. Finally, Goa, this thing had to be won through police action or military action, whatever it is. And it took 1947 to 1962, I think 1962, 63. It took so many years. It took so many years for us to get Goa. It's such a small little thing. We didn't have the national will to get it immediately. It took so much of time. Okay, that is because of our pacifism. Nehru's approach of, legal approach or whatever approach he had, right? Had that been followed by India without Patel, I mean, if Patel had not acted, perhaps he would have had another Pakistan in the heart of India, that is Hyderabad. Okay, so what are the factors that caused Britishers to take this step? Indian National Army under Subhash Chandra Bose. Mind you, Subhash Chandra Bose was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi. He was elected Congress president twice. Okay, but at some point of time, the ideas did not gel. So he finally, in one of this thing, he was elected as the Congress president, and then Mahatma Gandhi was not very happy. Then he forced him to resign, and then I think Pattabi Sitaramaya was made the Congress president. So all these factors led to Subhash parting company, like Jinnah parted company with the Congress. Subhash also parted company with the Congress. And then he thought of fighting the Britishers with arms. So then he went to Germany and then Japan and all those. They came right up to India's borders, Nagaland. I have seen the airfields, the place where the pitched battle took place. I was in Assam for the 7 years. I've toured in Nagaland and Manipur and Mizoram and all the places I've seen. I have seen the war memorial that has been erected for Indian soldiers, INA soldiers there. Amazing. It's amazing how he built, and then. So Britishers, definitely it had a solid impact on the psyche of the Britishers. Okay, this one factor, again, I don't know how much importance has been given in various narratives, what has been taught to you in your schools and colleges as young students. At least in my college days when I was a student, nothing much was talked about it. Then, loss of loyalty of armed forces, civil servants, and the entire people. By the time, the spark that was lit had already caught up, everywhere. This has already been mentioned all over India, the freedom struggle, the aspiration for Indian people, whom Britishers saw as independent countries. Britishers saw us as independent country. They didn't see us as a nation or a one set of people. So they were happy. I say, kabhi nahi hoga, it will never happen. But it was happening. Okay. Yes, we'll certainly give the credit to the freedom movement, Quit India movement, Salt Satyagraha, launched by Mahatma Gandhi. It was made a mass movement by his contributions. So Britishers realized loss of loyalty of the armed forces, civil servants, and the entire people. Another important aspect was the naval mutiny in Bombay, and for about between 18 February to 23rd February. And that naval mutiny spread from Bombay to Karachi to Vizag to Calcutta, all over, wherever they had set up their naval establishments. The naval ratings and officers, they went on a mutiny. They captured the armory, and then it's a war situation. So the British government had to summon various other ships, and they had to use force. They fired, and a lot of ratings were killed. Then what happened at that time, the Congress was in a dilemma, whether to support the mutiny or give a call to the mutineers to surrender. Okay, they deliberated, they discussed. You see, the causes of mutiny may be various, not necessarily only the independence. The causes of mutiny were dissatisfaction on various things and differences between the white soldiers, sailors, and the Indian soldiers. Same was the case in the Sepoy mutiny also. The problem was about certain treatments. Okay, in spite, but then somewhere behind that, the national aspirations was already there. But finally, Congress gave a call for the mutineers to surrender. They did not support, they did not extend the support, because perhaps wisely so, I would say, as a military man, whatever be the cause, we will not accept soldiers mutinying. Okay, even I have had the experience of, when we changed our uniform in Air Force. Earlier we would have that police type of uniform, and we changed it over to a tucking type and a different laws. First, it was introduced to the officers. It was not introduced to the men. And in Assam, in 2-3 units, there was a little reaction and repercussion. And immediately we all caught hold of all those people who were agitating against that, some of the young airmen, and we dismissed them. We did not allow them to. The spark was to be, we extinguished it immediately. Similarly, there was another occasion, whenever, recently there was army, within the army there was some problem where some of the army officers were killed or whatever it is. So we just suppress it, we dismiss them, send them into prison. Okay, so armed forces will never tolerate mutiny. That's the same thing happened with the Britishers also. But then, from the independence movement point of view, the Britishers, the realization came to the Britishers that we cannot trust the armed forces, which is, in terms of men, it's all Indians, soldiers, sailors, airmen, all Indians. Yes, officer class, the Britishers. So till then we were loyal to the white man, but now things have changed, right? So therefore, the very important aspect, they developed a little, perhaps it's high time that we take a relook at our strategies and whether we should hang on or whether we should quit. Okay. The British realized that for the first time in Indian history that the entire people were aflame with the desire for independence. Political freedom was no longer the objective of Congress alone, but all sections of the people. This is very, very important awakening that came about in the British administration, right? Still more important was that all sections of the services, civil, military, were moved by the same impulse. Men and officers of the defense forces declared openly that they had poured their blood in the war on the assurance that India would be free after cessation of hostilities. They demanded that this assurance must be honored. Now I would like to refer to the Second World War. Okay, what happened during the Second World War? Britain wanted the Indian political leaders to come out in support of the Second World War. During the First World War, yes, there was total support. But during the Second World War, the Congress held back. No, sorry, we are not going to support you. Right? So the logic was, we are asking for independence. So if that is the case, why would we support you who is not giving us independence? Why would we fight for your survival? So that's the kind of logic and argument they had, and they did not support. But then the British government drafted, you'll be amazed that something like 20-25 lakh Indians participated in the Second World War, right? Very recently, I was pleasantly surprised to see a war memorial built for the fallen Indian soldiers in France, and the French government honoring them. Okay. And today, in India, in Delhi, you have not yet built a war memorial for the Indian soldiers. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. Okay, this is the point I want to tell you. I want to bring it to your notice. Here in Udupi, there is a small memorial near Ajjarkad. How many of you have visited? On Independence Day, or on 26th January, Republic Day, or on Kargil Divas, or on Vijay Divas? Anyone? Anyone has seen it other than Professor Chadaga amongst you? So this is the attitude of Indians towards the armed forces. Okay. As soldiers, we feel bad about it. I want to share it with you. So still more important was the fact that all sections of the services, civil, military, were moved by the same impulses. Men and officers of the defense forces declared openly that they poured their blood in the war on the assurance that India would be free after the cessation of hostilities. They demanded that this assurance must be honored. Okay. All these developments convinced the British that they could no longer rely on the armed forces unless the political problems in India was satisfactorily resolved. They came to the conclusion. It drove them to this conclusion, I would say. It drove them to this conclusion. Okay, now the stage was set for independence. But then, independence to the whole nation or independence with partition? This was the question. By then, Jinnah had grown in stature. He was a very, very powerful man. You already referred to, that Government of India Act 1935, the interim government, all those things has already been discussed about it. The problem came, the Britishers, they had this idea of gradually devolving power to the Indians and make them govern themselves, albeit under the British crown, dominion status. They had that. That's why Government of India Act 1935 was passed, and they wanted to bring a constitutional mechanism for governance, at least in the provinces which are directly governed by the Britishers. The Cripps mission he mentioned. Cabinet mission, subsequently it was followed by cabinet mission. Okay. So the Second World War, it brought in huge changes. Everything changed. The hero of Second World War, Churchill, he lost the elections. He lost the election. And Labour government came to, governance in England, and Attlee became the Prime Minister of England. So they had a different approach to all these things, right? So on 15th March 1946, Attlee makes a statement in the House of Commons. I want you to read this. Okay. And he means, it is, I have adapted it from Maulana Azad's book. So where Maulana Azad says he means Attlee. He did not wish to stress on the differences between the Indians. Now you see the change from John Tracy, when British India, the East India Company handed over the powers to British Crown, how they looked at Indians. They are not a nation, they are different. They'll never be a nation. Okay, now he says he did not wish to stress on the differences between the Indians, for in spite of all differences, Indians were united in their desire for freedom. They recognized it. This was the underlying demand of all Indian people, whether they were Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Marathas, politicians, or civil servants. He admitted that nationalism has continuously grown stronger and permeated even the soldiers who had rendered splendid service in the Second World War. The huge transformation in their thinking, in their outlook towards India, Indian people, Indian freedom struggle. And that prompted the Labour government to take a decision that yes, it's time we quit India and hand over the reins to the Indians. Okay. So that's the stage the cabinet mission plan came for consideration. Now, what is this cabinet mission plan? This is, who was the person who drafted this cabinet mission plan? This is Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Okay, he was a Congress president. For 6 years, he was a Congress president. When this cabinet mission plan was finally drafted and it was given to the team which came from England, then Nehru became the Congress president, and Azad voluntarily made Nehru the Congress president. This cabinet mission plan is a very big thing, and then I will not like to go into the depth of it, but Azad felt with the cabinet mission plan, the Hindu-Muslim problems or the insecurity among Muslims that we will be dominated by the Hindus in independent India can be addressed by declaring India independent with a federal mechanism where there will be a federal government and there will be autonomous, fully autonomous regions, provinces, which are, for example, where the population is dominant, they will enjoy autonomy. For example, the Muslims were in majority in Bengal, parts of Bihar, and Assam. So that will become one, they made A, B, C categories and all that. Similarly, in the northwest, Punjab and those areas. So that also will be an autonomous region. The federal government will have only limited powers, foreign affairs, defense, communication, and very limited. So initially, a lot of deliberation discussions took place. Congress did not agree. Muslim Jinnah did not agree. But after a lot of deliberations and discussions internally and with the government, they all agreed upon this, that yes, cabinet mission plan is a solution for India's independence plus Hindu-Muslim problem. Okay, but then what happened? Something very happened. The plan was accepted by both Congress and Muslim League, but Nehru, by then Congress president, indicated through a press statement that the Congress can change it in the Constituent Assembly. Azad says the most terrible blunder created by or made by Nehru. That's what he says in his book. Immediately Jinnah caught on to that. Now it's a debatable issue whether Nehru was right, whether cabinet mission, if cabinet mission was accepted and put into practice, what would have happened to India? Did we have only two Muslim nations, that is Bangladesh and Pakistan? Or did we have, it would have resulted in so many major Muslim nations in India, including Hyderabad. Autonomy, this question of autonomy, please look into this, understand this, autonomy. When Indian states, I'll come to it later, but I'll mention here, when autonomy was granted to Jammu and Kashmir, okay, Jammu and Kashmir acceded to India, but under the continuous pressure brought by Sheikh Abdullah on Pandit Nehru, somewhere in 1953, I think, they got a constitution, separate constitution. And also Article 370 was brought into the Indian constitution. Okay, so understand this. Autonomy was given to them, and look at what is happening today. Autonomy, right? So as far as the Kashmir is concerned, the accession of all princely states to India was on the same instrument of accession. Okay, in 1935, when the Government of India Act was passed, a mechanism was developed by the Britishers whereby princely states would accede to India, and they drafted the instrument of accession, in which so many conditions were laid down. But Sardar Patel, he manipulated, managed skillfully, whatever it is, with his Menon, with his Secretary Menon, and made all the states, princely states, not only accede, but completely merge with India, accept Indian constitution in totality. But the same thing did not happen in the case of Kashmir. And today, as a result, we still suffer Kashmir problem. We still spill the blood of our soldiers. Huge death taking place, civilians, and we fight with the Pakistanis. So much so, Maharaja Karan Singh, son of Maharaja Hari Singh, very recently in a debate in the Indian Parliament, He said, he had the temerity to say this. Jammu and Kashmir acceded to India, but we did not merge with it. We don't blame only Sheikh Abdullah, but even some of the non-Muslims, they also had this mindset. Once you keep that mindset, it's very difficult to remove that mindset. Today, we are debating on the removal of Section 35A, okay, an amendment to Article 370. You go into the details of it, you're all students of geopolitics. Study that, debate, discussions, contents of it, and it's an issue. And they have come together. Omar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti, they have come together, okay. So, and even some other non-Muslim member of J&K legislature or this one, he has also voiced against that. It's a huge issue for India to sort it out, whether J&K should ultimately fully merge with India or they enjoy autonomy, which they are enjoying now under Article 370 and independent constitution. Okay. So when we are looking at this question of autonomous regions where certain population is dominant, what would have been the results and repercussions post-British departure from India? Very difficult to guess, very difficult to say now. So partition became inevitable, right? This enraged Jinnah, that is, that Nehru's press statement, and the mission plan got aborted. That was the end of the cabinet mission plan. Partition became inevitable because the Labour government was hell-bent on safeguarding the minority interest. Muslim minority means, in India, whenever you use the word minority, it only means it is Muslims. Subsequently, in the recent past, they added Sikhs and Jains and Parsis and whatnot. Even the Christians, all these, other than these communities, are no problem. They are not a question. But yes, they are always, they have this mindset, victimhood mindset. Okay. So Muslim Jinnah played this card to the hilt. First he said, Muslim will be in danger. Then he said, domination by Hindus, and later, Islam is in danger. And then, not only that, he gave a call for direct action. And in 1946, the direct action call, it lit fire in Bengal. A lot of killings took place in Bengal. It continued for a long time. And at the time, the chief minister of Bengal was Suhrawardi. Okay, Muslim League government was in power. So huge, took place, riots and all that, it took place. So we can't forget all these things that happened prior to, we need to understand this, the causes, reasons, people behind all these things. So formation of interim government was also referred to, and Viceroy's Council. Muslim League was not wanting to join the government, but then they were brought in. When they were brought into the government, Nehru became the vice president of it was called Governor's Council. This cabinet was Governor's Council to advise the governor how to run the affairs of the state. And Nehru became the vice president, and that is equal to the prime minister. And the portfolio, who will join what and what portfolio, who will hold what portfolio, all this bickering went on and went on. And by mistake, the finance portfolio was given to Muslim League. I think Liaquat Ali Khan became the finance minister and Patel became the home minister. Okay. Now, this caused huge problems in running the government at every step. Because I have worked in the government, I have worked in the finance ministry. I know anything and everything, if it has to see the light of the day, the file has to go through the finance. Okay, file has to go through the finance and there has to be a finance clearance. Otherwise, the file will come back. The same system now, the same system then. It was exasperating for all other ministries to run the government because the strings were in the hands of Liaquat Ali Khan of the Muslim League. So that, Patel was driven to the wall. He was the home minister. And Mountbatten, as you all know, he came with the mandate from Attlee. The Attlee statement I have already shown you. He came with the mandate, hurry up, hasten the Declaration of Independence. That is why 15th August was, otherwise it was, I think, somewhere 1948 June or something like that. I'm not able to recollect. It was not so sudden and so immediate. Okay, the time, they had a different time frame for giving independence. So it was done in a haste and hurry. And the partition was finally, who agreed on the partition? The first person to agree for partition was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. This is what Azad says. He writes, because Azad's book has been released after 30 years, after it was not allowed to be released. He categorically says the reason why Patel accepted was that he was fed up with the pinpricks of this violence and problems in running the governance and all over India, because Jinnah was not a pacifist. All Muslim leaguers were not pacifists. They direct action, violence. Okay. So then they said there is a ideal solution, and then, but Nehru was aghast. That's what he says. Incidentally, Nehru was a very favorite of Azad, and this book he has dedicated to Nehru only. And though he was not in agreement with the Nehru on various issues, but he says Nehru was shocked when Patel said, okay, this is the solution. Nehru also then finally, after all the Mountbatten, and he brings in, I don't know whether I should make that statement here. He says certain amount of influence was brought on Nehru, not only by Mountbatten, even from Lady Mountbatten. Finally, Nehru also agreed on the partition, and both of them, till then Nehru was not aware, Gandhi was not aware that these two, right hand and left hand of Nehru, Gandhi had capitulated to this demand. He was aghast. He was heartbroken, because he is the one who had declared partition on my dead body. But now it was reality. So he had to now support his people. The Patel and Nehru were his people. So finally, in the Congress Working Committee or whatever parliamentary, this partition proposal was accepted. There was one opposition, because they were all manipulated or whatever. Whenever Gandhi says there was no choice, I don't know who is the person who opposed this resolution. So that's how the Indian partition took place. Now the point I want to make all of you to realize is, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who put a condition about national interest and all that when he became the Muslim League leader, ultimately was driven to this level. Was he working for the interest of the Indian people, working for the interest of the Muslim people, working for satisfying his own ego, his rivalry with Nehru and Gandhi? This is the point you need to understand, right? Now, what was the role played by Maulana Abul Kalam Azad? What was he? Unfortunately, he was no more the Congress president, right? He couldn't play an important role. He issued a huge statement that runs into 2-3 pages. It's a very, very interesting document. All of you must read that. I just taken a little bit of extraction from that. As a Muslim, I have examined its likely effects on the fortunes of Muslims in India. Considering the scheme in all its aspects, I have come to the conclusion that it is harmful not only for India as a whole, but for Muslims in particular. Partition. He is talking about the partition. It is harmful for the Muslims in particular. And in fact, it creates more problems than it solves. The very term Pakistan goes against my grain. It suggests that some portion of the world are pure, Pakistan, pure, while others are impure. Islam has got these kafirs and believers. Okay, perhaps it was in his mind. When Pakistan is the word is the pure people and impure people. Such division of territories into pure and impure is un-Islamic. This is the statement Azad gave, and he continued. Two states confronting one another offer no solution to the problem of one another's minorities. When you make two nations, there are Hindus and Sikhs, Punjab, Bengalis in East Pakistan. Offer no solutions of the problem to one another's minorities, but only lead to retribution and reprisal by introducing a system of mutual hostages. This exactly happened. Most unfortunate that none of the leaders, other than Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who realized what can happen in the partition, aftermath of partition.